And it can't be counted.
Yeah,
Take
that's
that,
huge.
Teferi.
Take that,
that.
Teferi. Hey guys, welcome to episode 4. I am Deathrite Squid, and as always, I'm joined by Chaoski. How you doing, dude?
Pretty good, how are you?
I am pretty excited.
Me too. We've got some spoils for Core Set 2020. Everything's coming up Magic the Gathering.
Yeah, it's looking pretty good. I'm pretty excited about the spoils, as you put it. It's spoils season again. We've got some spoilers. I have Chandra sitting next to me, well, on the screen next to me, which we will get into.
Wow, how'd you get her to come all the way down to where you are?
And we will get onto that in a little bit. But first, I wanted to talk a little bit about what have you been up to? What have you been playing?
Not a lot, to be honest. I've mostly been messing around with deck ideas and theory crafting and doing all that kind of stuff. So we messed around with Archmage's Charm and Force of Negation and tried to beat back some less fair decks.
Yep, there's a lot of that going on, that's for sure.
Some classic fair Magic.
Cool. Yeah, I think...
about you?
Oh, I never thought you were going to ask. I've been playing some Blue Moon type decks, so like Blue Red Control in paper and on Moto. Some actually...
Hint, MTGA.
Yeah, well, let me play on there. But yeah, no, it's just like a classic Blue Moon style deck. I've been trying out the Prismatic Vista in that deck, that's actually a pretty cool card.
You might have hit the nail on the head with it being like a bit more of a budget option to your standard Scalding Tarn, Misty Rainforest, Arid Mesa type fetch package that you would play in that kind of deck when you're first starting out or something like that. You just want to give it a little bit of a test.
Well, that's what I thought initially it was going to be. Initially, I was running, 4 Scalding Tarns, but then I also had some Flooded Strands and Misties in there, whatever, to make up 8 to 10 fetch lands and different variants of that deck. And one thing I did find is that, once you've run out of Steam Vents, those blue fetches only get blue lands, right? So Prismatic Vista works quite well as copies 5 to 8 of the colors you need. It does mean that if you want to make it a dual land, so to speak, that you do want to run a mountain in this deck. So I don't think this is the sort of thing you're going to want for a 3-color deck. Maybe if you want for a single color deck, you want some deck thinning, but 4 copies of a card probably don't really matter, and the normal fetches already do that. So in the Blue Moon deck, I've got 4 copies of Scalding Tarn, but it means I've also got access to blue-red after those or as well as those, as long as I have the basics in the deck to go along with it. So I'm running a single mountain and a bunch of islands, as well as 2 Steam Vents and some of the fast lands. I wasn't trying it out with the
Spybluff Canal.
Spybluff Canal, that's the one. I haven't tried the Fiery Islet, whatever we're calling it, in that deck yet.
That was what I was most interested in. I was about to jump in and say, what about the Fizzlet? Are you playing the Fizzlet?
Yeah, I haven't put the Fizzlet in there. I wanted to try out the Vista first. I think that's probably a better inclusion for the deck because, the sort of control decks, you want to go late game and you want to be tapping your mana and using it a fair bit, and paying that life to do it, I think might be a little bit too much for a deck like that. Something more like Storm that's planning to go off and kill you in the first couple of turns. That's the sort of deck that's really going to benefit from having lands or from the Horizon Cycle. So the deck's actually been performing pretty well from from the testing that I've done. I've been enjoying playing with Archmage's Charm in the main board. That card's been very good. Just another counter spell, a way to draw cards. Pretty much exactly as we reviewed it when we looked at it.
Is it just another cryptic command, except instead of counter draw, you're counter or draw? Like does the third mode come into much?
Yeah, well, that's what I wanted to say, is that I've used that a fair few times. Like I played a bunch of games against Burn Deck and against other small creature decks, and you do sometimes just take their guy. Being able to then trade off their dude for their other dude, it kind of works out pretty well there. So each mode, apart from the counterspell mode, I guess is almost like a 2-for-1 there, because removing their thing and putting a thing into play is way better than just removing their thing. So
drawing 2 cards and spending a card is...
Yeah, it's totally fine. And then as a 3-mana counterspell, if that's what you have to do, then, you're kind of happy to have it there as well. Like, it is a hard counter, so I'm not too, disappointed with using it in that way as well. So, yeah, I'd say Archmage's Charm has been, very, very good for me. That's pretty much it for new cards for that deck that I tried out. I had Force of Negations in the sideboard, but it never really came up. When I did play the Mono Blue Tempo list that we brewed up on Magic Online last week, that card I did actually run that in the main deck to try it out, and it was pretty pretty impressive when I did get to use it.
Excellent.
And even from a deck like a Delver point of view, where you play a Delver, then use it to protect the Delver on their turn, like that was pretty interesting, because I didn't think it was going to be as good offensively like that. I thought it'd be the sort of, Delver decks, because you can't play the Delver and then protect it on your turn when you're going for a swing or whatever, it would be less good. But they kind of have to respect cards like Spell Pierce as well. So
yeah, you cast your Delver on one, and they have a 1 turn window, and that's usually land bolt, land Path to Exile, land 1 mana removal spell, and then when you respond with a Force of Negation, just pow. All right.
Yeah, and you've committed
now
enough there.
Untap. We got the Curious Obsession, or whatever plan we were going with, and now we have the Spell Pierce or the Spell Snare or relevant 1 mana counter spell.
So now it's protected. Yeah. But yeah, that's my experience with new Modern Horizons cards at the moment. Or so far, like there's a bunch of other stuff I want to play with.
There's heaps of things that's come out of this set that's playable, and format warping, and
I've played against a bunch of those cards as well. Like I got to play against somebody who played what's the legendary black creature?
Hogaak,
that guy. Yeah, I played against that guy. I was just like, I guess, it's just an 8/8. Like, that's it. It's just an 8/8 with trample. So, like, maybe in a creature deck, like a Collected Company style deck, or Dredge, can just put this thing into play, and it's just an additional piece. Well, it turns out it's actually a little bit better than that. All right, so I've pulled up a screenshot here of a game on Moto of somebody playing this deck that I thought was pretty impressive. So if you look at the bottom, it says turn 4. This is the board state that they've managed to amass. Now, the card you can't see is Bridge from Below, which is the weird graveyard enchantment, where when it's in play, it actually doesn't do anything, but when it's in your graveyard, if a creature you control would die, you make a 2/2 zombie. And a loop that they've created using a variety of different cards, so Gravecrawler, Bloodghast, Hogaak, and Carrion Feeder. It's pretty impressive, the sort of boards that you can amass. Now, I have played against this as well, and it's kind of disgusting, and they can really just go off. So this is a version of it where you can just, sack your dudes, bring them back, sack them, bring them back over and over again. Because Hogaak can be cast from the graveyard, you can sack Hogaak as well, create more tokens, and then bring him back using the ability from the graveyard. There's another version of the deck that was using Altar of Dementia as well. So some of them have it, some of them don't. But yeah, using Altar of Dementia, which is another card from Modern Horizons where you can sack a creature and target player mills equal to that creature's power. And so they play the Hogaak, they sack it, target themselves, fill their graveyard, replay them from the graveyard. It puts more bridges into the graveyard, which makes more tokens, which can be convoked to recast them out of the graveyard. And you can do this to create, loop. You have 4 bridges, you create a ton of tokens, and then with the altar, you can sack your entire board and mill your opponent out. And this can happen pretty early on in the game as well. So, this card's been pretty warping to the format. It's putting a lot of work in. I have not beaten it yet. Like, every time I've played against it, I've gotten destroyed from it. They've created board states that look a little bit like that one.
Is this just Hogaak's fault? Like, how much of this is involved in the Carrion Feeder reprint, the Altar of Dementia reprint, as the 2 major sack outlets? Because I feel like Altar of Dementia with Bridge from Below and Leyline, like Hogaak just gives you fuel for the altar, but then the altar gives you fuel for the Hogaak. So it's sort of
they play off each other quite well. And then obviously with the Carrion Feeder and the Gravecrawler, you can sack. So again, for the bridge, especially when they're playing Vengevine as well, which is the hasty elemental guy. But yeah, you can sack them off to each other. It puts counters on your Carrion Feeder, and if you've got Bridge from Below, it spits out more tokens. So this deck has proven to have picked up quite a lot from the new set, and I mean, it's a little close to maybe being a bit too much, which does sort of lead us to wonder whether a ban to nerf this deck a little bit might be incoming. I can't see Wizards wanting to ban any of the cards from Modern Horizons, because I mean it'd
be very sad. Like, this was such a hype set. There's been so much intrigue from all different types of Magic players.
There was a lot of stuff, and to ban something that has just been printed and powered up a deck, you really don't want to do that. I guess from even for the company's standpoint, it looks bad if that's what they're doing. People were a little bit upset after Splinter Twin got banned, and it was printed in a set probably 6 months before that. So for something like that to happen here, it'd be even sooner than that. Now I could see like a nerf happening to the deck. You could probably just ban the bridge. If you ban the Bridge from Below, I think that that might be the way to do it, because that's the card that really enables the super gross stuff. Yeah, being able to go off with the Carrion Feeder and the Grave Crawler and the Vengevine, I think that's close enough to what these decks already do.
It does provide an awful lot of fuel, and if you ban Leyline, you're hitting one of the answers to these types of decks.
Yeah, of course. And look, I don't think the Leyline's that big of an issue. I think, I wouldn't run it in my deck if I was playing this. I think it was a little bit cute. I think the cards are powerful enough on their own where you don't need it. But yeah, like you said, it is also a great hate card against these decks as well, because they can't do anything until they get rid of the Leyline. So yeah, I think Bridge from Below, if you're going to ban a card to weaken this a bit, that's got to be the card that you pick. Doesn't really have crossover in any other decks either, so you're not going to hurt like other archetypes incidentally because of it.
Yeah.
Whereas like you ban something like a Gravecrawler or a Carrion Feeder, well, Carrion Feeder is probably going to get played, if people want to play like Malira combo and stuff like that, that might be a better card than Viscera Seed for them, so you don't want to hurt that. If you ban Gravecrawler, people who play like, more casual zombie decks, that's an auto include in those decks, and you really don't want to hit them there either. So I think Bridge is probably a safe ban if you wanted to weaken it a bit and then assess it after Core 2020 comes out. Of course, we don't know what's coming in that set too, and they might put some other graveyard pieces in, but again, I don't think, if you have to play certain cards in your deck to hate out a deck that's in the format, I think then you probably have a problem with your format. So this might be a good place to start.
Bridge is probably the card in the deck that involves the least amount of actually playing Magic.
Yeah.
You just get rewarded for having this in your deck and doing a certain game plan and not actually doing anything with it.
Yeah, for sure.
This is just a thing that has just gone into the bin.
Yep.
I personally would like a little bit more time. Like, as much as it's scary how some people have done some digging and some exploring and some brewing and put this beast together, I'd really like it if some people could then do some brewing and digging and things like that to find some hate for it. People just need to put a Grafdigger's Cage or two into their decks.
I think the feels bad of always losing to it, though, if that's what it becomes. Especially after a set like Horizons has come out where it's hyped up a format and brought a lot of people back into it, as well as new players. You don't want their play experience to be, they're playing that Hogaak deck, I'm just going to lose now, and it might deter people from playing as well. So I think they definitely need to weigh up what they're doing. There will be a ban and restricted announcement before Core 2020 comes out, I believe. So with that, I think a little bit of finesse in terms of how...
an announcement.
Yeah, well, an unbanned announcement would be very, very good. I've got a list here of cards that I would like to see unbanned, more so than bans. I think, Bridge is probably the only card that I think is problematic at the moment. But yeah, onto unbans. I think that's far more exciting if we could get some older cards, considering the power level of some of the, the now current modern decks. I think there's a couple of old ones that could come back.
That is another way to police a format, and people that grew attached to cards and then they got banned and now they can't play with them anymore, and they're sitting there with their playset in a box waiting for that day when it gets unbanned. It's back in the deck, and let's go. Let's fight things. And
so I do have a list. I'm going to start with my favorite card, and probably one of my favorite cards, not just on this list, but of all time. Deathrite Shaman.
Your namesake, when you almost said Deathrite Squid there.
Not at all.
I heard it.
Very, very different. I can still play Magic. That's the difference between me and Deathrite Shaman. But hopefully that can change. Well, I mean, that's it, right? The card's so good that you can never play it anymore.
Take a minute, though. We sometimes talk a little bit about art on cards. Deathrite Shaman was probably the first card I saw and went, wow, that's a beautiful drawing.
That is a beautiful painting.
Yeah.
Drawing. But yeah, no, Deathrite Shaman. So banned for being too good. It was the enabler that is also a win condition, right? So, it's your mana elf. It comes down on 1. It ramps you into your game plan. Unlike, say, a Llanowar Elves, Deathrite Shaman can stabilize a game that you're losing, as well as, get in there in the late game and kill an opponent. Like, the amount of games that I've won...
cast off a swamp.
And it can be cast off a swamp, yeah. No, that's huge. You can put it in an Esper deck and not be too sad that you can't activate the green ability. And, people have done that in Legacy. People have turned their Grixis decks splashing green because of this card, up until the point it got banned, obviously. But, yeah, this card is fantastic because it can enable splashes.
That was the moment the Wizards went, oh boy.
Yeah, this might be a little too... If they're doing this...
Cut this out, yeah.
Yeah. But yeah, so Deathrite Shaman is the mana elf that, can win you a game, right? So when it first came out, people were putting it in Jund, obviously. They would play it on turn 1, and on turn 2, they'd play a Liliana, and off they went. And that was probably a little bit too much, considering, Liliana would then tear your opponent's hand apart. You did other Jund stuff in between with Tarmogoyfs and Thoughtseizes and whatever, and then your turn 1 play would, at some point in the game, become your win condition, and you'd just hit him for 2 and hit him for 2 and hit him for 2, and eventually your opponent would die, right? And that was probably a little powerful for that format. Now we're in a world of, a sea of tokens and Hogaaks and all sorts of nonsense now, and the format has definitely sped up and become a lot more powered. I think.
I can't help but look at this board and think to myself, like, is Deathrite Shaman really that bad? Like,
like, he'd help you hate that out a little bit, yeah. And so, well, the whole list of the cards we're looking at today are kind of on that level where they are very powerful and they do win games. Maybe it's time to give them another shot at it. And so I think this card, it goes in a bunch of decks. It does give you a little bit of incidental graveyard hate. Now, probably not on the level needed to beat something like the Dredgevine deck, but you could definitely slow them down with it. And then in the more fairer matchups, this can be a powerhouse card for that archetype. So, I don't know, I think we're ready to have a card like this back again. There's definitely decks out there that would absolutely love to put this in, like some new decks that would run it, as well as, Jund and Rock style decks would definitely be happy to welcome Deathrite Shaman back to their 75.
Stoneforge Mystic.
Yep.
We talked about it already. I'd really like to see Stoneforge Mystic again. Brings with it some swords, brings with it some half-decent equipment that mostly gets overlooked because you have to cast an equipment and then equip an equipment, and then you do dies, and you're sad because you don't have your equipment. Usually that equipment was Batterskull because it came with a dude, and that was why it was the best in Modern after Umizawa's Jitte got banned. But
probably not seeing that one back.
No, I'll accept no Jitte if we get back Stoneforge and swords get to see play again.
We've got brand new swords to play with as well. We just had 2 swords printed. So I would love to see those cards actually get picked up and, get put into lists. And I think Stoneforge is exactly the sort of card that, would enable those cards to come back and actually put some work in, as well as the new swords. So yeah, I say yes to Stoneforge and yes to turn 3 Batterskulls. I think that's fantastic.
Turn 3 Batterskull against, I keep going back to it, but like this kind of boards, this is mental.
Yeah, there's so much going on.
Mental. I can't think of what you do against it. Like Damnation, sure, I'll make 3 2/2s next turn. Play land, get back a Bloodghast, cast Hogaak.
Yeah, it just comes back again. So, yeah, I think something like that is not too powerful these days. All right, next up is another card I know you're pretty excited about getting back, and that is Birthing Pod.
Yeah, I'd love Birthing Pod back. I took a very long time when I was new to Modern to understand why it got banned. I spent a long time trying to understand why it got banned because I was still fairly new to Modern, and I still look at sort of the more fringe cards that not a lot of people play, and I was like, why is everyone getting mad about Birthing Pod? Torpor Orb exists, you can play it in every single deck. Why not? Like, why can't people just play Torpor Orb? And
I think that was the exact problem there, is that yes, everyone can play and probably should play a card like Torpor Orb, and this is because of that, they don't need to ban it, but I think that's the whole point, is that if everyone has to do that, then the card is probably a little bit too powerful. This would be one of the ones that I think we could have it back. There's so many options for it. Like, I love cards like this because every time they print a new creature, it makes Birthing Pod more interesting. The problem with a card like Birthing Pod is that generally doesn't happen. People tend to just always shoot up the most powerful thing they can. And that's a lot of what led to this card getting banned in the first place, is that it created a lot of repetition in gameplay, which is generally something that you want to steer clear of when you're making and playing a trading card game like this. I think it's important to have diversity in your games, and if a card like Birthing Pod... Yeah, but if a card like Birthing Pod stops that from happening and makes play patterns, repeat over and over again, that's obviously not a good thing for the game. Now, in saying that, I think the power level is fine. I mean, we're not really getting to the turns where that's relevant in a lot of games at the moment, so I think giving people access to, bullets and hate cards and whatever is fantastic, as well as, they can put together combos and whatever like they used to with this card. I think this is probably fine to come back, though in saying that, it is definitely one that you want to watch and just be careful of, because it can lead to a format where it's just Birthing Pod stuff again. So,
but it's power creep as well. Like there's better removal than what there was in the days of
Birthing for sure.
Pod.
Yeah.
Pod at the end of the day is still only something that you can do at sorcery speed, and if you can just never keep a dude on the board, like I know you can play the dude and then pod him and all that kind of stuff, but if you can just never establish a dominant board position because you're relying on this technically 4 mana artifact, 3 if you want to pay the 2 life and everything, but your opponent's just killing you. You slam your Birthing Pod on turn 3,
it just doesn't do
no
nothing.
worries, untap, kill you.
It is what it is there.
So next card we could talk about is probably the Grand Police of Modern.
Ooh, Splinter Twin.
Being Splinter Twin.
Yes. This is a card I played a bunch of and was sad to see go. The police, as you put it, I think that's a great term for a card like this. Like, it meant that people had to be, they had to be on it. You couldn't just go and I'm going to do the most unfair thing ever, because if you did that and you didn't win, or you had no interaction with this, you just lost a Splitter Twin, right? It just, you're like, well, I'm going to combo off and do all these things. And they're like, well, I'm going to remand that, and then I'm going to flash this guy in, and then on your turn, I'm going to kill you, right? And so you had to come prepared. Like, it kept people, I don't know, kept people fair, I guess. I don't know if that's the right word for it, but, it definitely kept the format in check, that's for sure. And I think, it felt bad, and that's part of the reason that led to it being banned, is that, it stopped a lot of decks from being able to do things. But now we can sort of see what the things those decks would do. I kind of want to have it back.
The twin banning was let's open up the gates. Let's let everyone get creative. What are we gonna do? And now here we are, and people are like, can you come back?
Have it back. I'm like, we had fun.
We don't like this anymore. We like the grindy control matches that just kind of ended when everyone got sick of it.
No, and I think this is another card that will, definitely put decks like that Hogaak deck into check, because, if they can't kill you, it doesn't matter how many tokens they make. If they can't kill you, when you play a Splitter Twin, you just win. So last card on the list is not a big combo piece. It's not a splashy creature or a win condition or anything like that. It's actually one of the fairest cards, I think, on this list, but also one of the most powerful.
It's just good value.
And it's a tiny picture of Punter. 1 blue for a sorcery. You look at the top 3 cards of your library, put them back in any order. You can shuffle your deck, and then you draw a card. So this is a fantastic piece of blue, I guess, hand sculpting, card selection. It does a bunch of things. Because right now, what do we have?
We have Serum Visions, we have Thought Scour.
Yep.
They're probably the 2 closest cards.
Yeah, and they're fine, right? But this is just that much better. Now, this was banned because of how good it was with cards like Delver, and how consistent it made a lot of blue strategies. Now, I think with the way the format's gone, along with
Miracles as well.
Yeah, look, it's great with Miracles. But again, these are the sort of things that I want to see come back to this, format. I want to see Delvers, I want to see Miracles, I want to see control decks that can actually control without just getting run over by, the crazy fast aggro that is, Infect and the Dredgevine decks and the normal Dredge decks and all that sort of stuff that, is out there at the moment. And this is one of those cards that just makes those decks that little bit more consistent, and enables them to fight those strategies a bit more efficiently, I think.
Yeah, I do wonder if a control-dominated meta as opposed to a combo-dominated meta, because that is very much what we're in.
Yeah, it definitely feels like that.
And I think if you're in a control-dominated meta, counterspell wars and spell slinging and value trades and then windmilling that huge board clear to pull you back into a game, that's just more exciting to watch as well.
Yeah, and it feels way better to play.
Need to consider is what is fun to watch. And
that's part of the reason Standard is what it is now, right? Is because, mid-range matchups with creatures and board states and all that, that is what Wizards wanted for coverage, and that's what they've pushed that format towards, because it does view very well. If you're trying to watch the Pro Tour, or that just looks better, right? Crazy combos and that are fun, but, they're not the best and easiest thing for newer players especially to watch and, get a hold of. So
when you're watching a 3-hour stream of 4 people of games of just people trying to find the same 4-card combo over and over again, it gets real dull after a while.
Of course,
a variable control deck against another variable control deck, or a classic aggro control matchup. One's trying to stabilize and one's trying to get in there quick enough. It's so much more exciting.
Oh, for sure.
Value cards like Ponder, instant game-winning cards like Splinter Twin that allow you to build a strong, solid control deck around it that's not samey, but it can fight a lot of different things. That they're probably better ways to go than just a Dredge Mirror.
I'd love to see that. Modern draws a lot of people when it went to watch, right? It's an interesting format. There's so much more going on, and I think having more of those games where they play out and we actually get to see a lot of interaction between the players and between the cards they play is a hell of a lot more interesting than just watching turn 2s and turn 3s happen all the time. And these are the sort of cards that can push the decks that can enable a format like that. So I don't know. I think some of these changes that, or these unbans that we want to see would definitely drive Modern more towards a format that is easier to watch, but also more fun to play, because you just get to play more Magic. So
I think it creates less rage than bans as well.
Oh, of course. Unbans are huge. People love,
play it anymore.
Yeah, unbans are awesome. That's the best way to police a format, because it just gives people more cards to play with and more options. So, pre-release changes. That's the next thing that I wanted to touch on just for a little bit at least. Because it's something that I'm not super happy with. And I think some people will be. But so the change I'm referring to is that pre-release has always sort of happened on a Friday night for me. Like that was something I looked forward to at midnight because it's always the pre-release weekend. So Friday midnight, therefore Saturday morning was the first time that a store could, or the first event a store could run would be a midnight pre-release. Now, the changes to this are that stores will be allowed to run their first pre-release event from 3 p.m. Friday local time. So what that means is that people can get in for, say, like an F&M style pre-release kicking off around 7 o'clock or whenever your store does F&M and be out of the shop around midnight-ish after the pre-release is finished, rather than coming in and playing a very, very late and generally ridiculous night of Magic. It upsets me a little bit. The midnight pre-release has always been a huge thing for me. I loved the idea of just getting out, starting a tournament at midnight, playing Magic through till 4 or 5 in the morning, getting worse and worse as the fatigue kicks in, but funner and funner as everything seems more ridiculous and hilarious as the night goes on, right?
Nobody cares anymore, yeah.
Right, and you get these...
really fun card and I'm going to play with it. What about it?
Yep, and that's your plan, right? You open a card and you're like, it's midnight. Like, I'm already ridiculously tired. I'm just going to play this card and see how many times I can make this one dumb thing happen. And that's the event and the hype around it, a midnight launch, whether it's for like a video game or, a new Magic set where you get to play with the cards early, it feels early and it feels special. I think changing that to, being a 5 p.m. or a 7 p.m. type event thing, like, I don't know, I feel like that's going to detract from it a little bit. Like, I loved going to that pre-release F&M and you play the F&M and then that's finished and then you jump into the pre-release. And I don't know, with that changing, I am a little bit worried. I'm a little bit concerned that it might, affect that sort of event. Like, and I know a lot of people out there love the midnight pre-release, and if you can fire one at 7:30 or 7 p.m. or 3 p.m. if that's what you want to do, I mean, is there any point putting on the midnight one anymore? Like, I feel like it's going to split attendance and it's probably going to hurt a lot of stores and a lot of communities in the long run.
I think there's definitely you can definitely keep the midnight ones going. You are definitely just going to get your diehard fans and not so much the people that might be sort of less interested but then turn up and go, oh my god, this is really, really fun. I'm going to every single midnight pre-release for the rest of time.
Now, whether that's going to
behind it as someone who works weekends, because I can't always stay up till past midnight on a Friday, and I enjoy it for that reason, but I completely understand why people would be unhappy with a change like that. Yeah,
and maybe less so players, because I think people just, players just want to get the cards in their hands as quickly as possible and play with them, so maybe that is a good thing. But definitely from a store perspective, having to choose whether you run like a 7 o'clock, which then impacts your F&M, as well as a midnight, but then maybe those people leave, so you might end up with 2 smaller events, which in my experience, especially for something as ridiculous and massive and, everybody, the hype behind a pre-release, when you split that down to small numbers, they're just not as exciting. Like, I've been to 100-player pre-releases and I've been to 10-player pre-releases, and I can definitely tell you which one I'd prefer to go to. I don't know. We'll see how this impacts it. Hopefully the communities who know what they like and do like those midnight things keep doing it. But yeah, we'll just have to wait and see. Speaking of pre-release, on to Core Set 2020 has had some spoilers out over the last week, I guess. Chandra Awakened Inferno. So that was the first one I saw. There was 3 Chandras spoiled at once. 6 mana for a 6 loyalty planeswalker. It has a additional line of text. So I don't know if this means that static abilities are transferring over, but this one sure has one, and it says, this spell can't be countered.
Good first line for the red card.
That's pretty good, right? Like, you want to slam this and just be, you're getting your Chandra. But let's see what she does before we get too excited. So, +2, each opponent gets an emblem with, at the beginning of your upkeep, this emblem deals 1 damage to you. And that's an emblem. You can stack those, right?
This is +2 off of how many starting loyalty?
6.
6.
So she has -3. She deals 3 damage to each non-elemental creature. So it's a board clear, basically. It's as good as a board clear we get in red, and the Planeswalker sticks around. So if you need to, if there's a blue-white type tempo deck like what we've got at the moment with the mono-white deck that runs counter magic, that, it's a 6-mana board wipe, but your 6-mana board wipe is resolving and it is happening. So that's pretty good.
6-mana board wipe's giving him a Curse of the Pierced Heart every turn from then on. So it's an aura that attaches to a player and deals 1 damage to them every turn.
There you go. I have never heard of that card.
I played with it when I first started playing Magic. I was like, this is great. I can.
It's a Dark Ascension Innistrad thing, right? Okay,
yeah. Yeah.
Very good. And then, yeah, her minus X is she deals X damage to target creature or planeswalker. If a permanent dealt this damage would die this turn, exiled instead. So she can come down and kill something. She can come down and kill planeswalker, which, as we've seen in Standard recently, is super relevant. Probably more relevant than creatures in a lot of decks.
And it can't be countered.
Yeah,
Take
that's
that,
huge.
Teferi.
Take that. Teferi. Yeah, it comes down.
You're casting this Chandra. They're not countering it. You're bombing that Teferi, and now you have Chandra.
Yeah, I think that's great.
Teferi.
I think it's great. The tick up is awesome. Like, you're sitting there and if you want to play Teferi as your win condition and you're eventually going to get there, well, Chandra's going to come down and say, here's a clock, buddy. Right? You play that first Chandra, and now, what do they got? A 10-turn clock, maybe? If you ever get to tick her up twice or play a second one, that's control player... Fast. Yeah, that control player, that adds up very quickly, and they're probably not getting to their Teferi ultimate. And if they do, you just don't care, right? Same with the Nexus decks. Like, if they want to take every turn and they don't really have their win condition online and a Chandra has ticked up, you're in a bit of trouble. That's all I can say.
Take all the turns you want, buddy. You're just gonna die.
So yeah, no, this is pretty interesting. So this is our first mythic from the set. It's obviously a Chandra themed set, so this is the flagship card for the set. It's really impressive.
I think it's really interesting to note as well the tiny window of interaction that you have against this, because it can't be countered. By playing a Planeswalker, you hold priority once it enters the battlefield, so you get to activate its abilities immediately. There's no in-response bomb anything.
You're always getting that emblem if you want it, yeah.
Pretty much no matter what. I can't think of any sort of Venser effect or anything that just bounces a spell on the stack off the top of my head.
Well, not one that's playable, at least. Like, you can counter an activate ability in Standard, but the card that does it sucks. So you are getting that if you play
And then there's not a single card in the game that can remove emblems.
No, so that's it. Yeah,
you cannot counter it. You get this emblem, and now you have to remove the Chandra. Otherwise, you get another one.
Yeah, and 8 loyalty is a lot. Like, if you can't Vraska's Contempt this or Elder Spell this, it's going to take a lot to get rid of it. So yeah, I think this card's very good. 6 mana is a lot for, say, like a mono red deck, but hey, if you want to board into this in a couple of mountains, you are going to get this into play against the control decks, and you will sometimes kill them with it. So I don't hate it there. If there's a Grixis type Planeswalker deck as well that wants a finisher, I mean, this is, if you can control the game, it's a slow one, but it does finish a game off, that's for sure.
I think she's best friends with Sarkhan.
Yeah, fantastic there, right? That's very good.
Sarkhan, like
all sorts of stuff. But yeah, the Planeswalker decks, maybe. I mean, 6 is proven expensive. Like, a lot of those decks don't run the 5 mana Teferi, and we know how good he is. So maybe. But yeah, I think this card's fantastic, and I definitely look forward to giving it a go. That's for sure. So we've also got a rare Chandra. That is
another Chandra.
So we have the rare one, and the rare one is Chandra Acolyte of Flame. So 1 red for a 4 loyalty Planeswalker. That's pretty good already. Like, 3 mana Planeswalkers tend to do work. She has 2 0 abilities and a -2. So her first 0 is put a loyalty counter on each red Planeswalker you control. So her 0 ability is actually a +1, I guess, but it also works for Sarkhan. Like you said, if you're playing a Super Friends or Walkers style deck like the Jeskai deck, that's great there.
You can tick up your Tibalt. So
yeah,
you don't
that's
have to
true. Yeah.
him.
It does tick up your other Planeswalkers. That's interesting.
You can Tibalt forever.
Yeah. Her other,
you
can Saheeli forever too, which is kind of cool. Her other 0, create 2 1/1 red elemental creature tokens. They have haste, sacrifice them at the beginning of the next end step. So that's a little low impact. At its baseline, it's a 0 ability that deals 2 damage, I guess. If you can sacrifice them to any other effect, that's very good. But yeah, so that's her elemental effect, I guess. I think all 3 of them had an elemental matters ability on them. Then her -2, you may cast an instant or sorcery card from your graveyard with converted mana cost 3 or less. And then you exile it instead. So you can flash back a card, but it also casts it for you. You don't have to pay the cost. Jace Vryn's Prodigy had an ability like this where you had to pay the cost in conjunction with paying using the Planeswalker ability. She just casts it for you. Now, look, it can only hit 3 or less, but this is a 3 mana Planeswalker. Like, how much do you actually want from it before it's good? Like, if you can pay her for 3 and then play a 3 mana spell, you kind of get your money's worth right there, right? I think this card's fantastic. I think this card's actually better than the other Chandra. I think
just bringing her down on 4 and being able to cast a shock.
Yeah, or a lava coil.
Just to answer a threat.
Yeah.
Or, a lava coil on 5.
Cast down. These cards don't have to be red either. It's an instant or sorcery with CMC 3 or less. So
yeah, that's...
You get whatever you want from this. I think this card's actually secretly probably the best of the 3 Chandras, purely because of that ability.
Cast Elder Spell.
You can cast an Elder Spell, yeah. But yeah, and then tick it back straight up to 4.
It's just boop, 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 boop. Yeah.
Yeah, it's very
Um,
good. If you want to look at uncommon red planeswalkers, I have one more for you. And that
Yeah.
is Chandra Novice Pyromancer. So this is the uncommon.
Another
The last one. This one's also kind of cool. So it's 3 and a red for it's uncommon. 5 loyalty planeswalker, +1. Elementals you control get +2/+0 until end of turn. That second ability on the previous Chandra looks a lot better when you can hit them for 6 instead of 1, which is an ability we've seen Chandra do before. Her -1 is add red. So, okay, like if you've got use for the mana, this is now a 2 mana planeswalker that, yes, you can only play it when you've got 4 mana, but I mean, if you've got use for that mana, now this is actually a pretty good deal. And then her -2 is she deals 2 damage to any target. You can get 2 shocks out of her. This is cool. This is the first uncommon we've seen as a planeswalker that actually ticks up. So obviously it's not part of the War of the Spark cycle, so it is, templated a little bit different. But I think this is the one that people have sort of overlooked and they've sort of dismissed because they're like, well, it's 4 mana and the abilities aren't super great. The elementals only matter if you've got elementals. But the add red, like the first turn you play it, if you can play her, add red, lava coil the thing that'll kill her, then the next turn you tick her up. Now she's sticking around to do other things. The next turn you can also ramp into, say, the 6 mana Chandra or something off that red ability.
Yeah, I also really like that. With War of the Spark, we've seen a lot of board states, or I've seen a lot of board states anyway now, that feature a lot of planeswalkers on not much loyalty. And I like that you can just bring this one down and just pew, and just
shoot
start,
them down. Yeah.
Just start taking out opposing planeswalkers.
It's pretty good, yeah.
If they don't counter the Chandra, if they don't answer the Chandra immediately, she's just going to keep taking them down. Yeah. And if you play like Chandra Tribal, I'm going crazy now, but like you will play Chandra Acolyte of Flame with this.
No, they pair very well together for sure, yeah.
And then you are infinitely pew-ing other planeswalkers.
Well, keep in mind, all 3 of them have great little elemental synergy. Like the other one, the first one, or the rare one makes the elementals. This one buffs the elementals, and the 6-drop kills everything except your elementals. So even if you mess up your planeswalker activations with that 6-drop Chandra, your elementals are still fine. So I like that inbuilt safety valve. But yeah, so this one's cool too. Speaking of elementals, though, there was an elemental spoiled. I'm assuming it was very, very recently, like an hour or so ago, because I've only just seen this one. And this is Creeping Trailblazer.
Creeping Trailblazer.
So it is a red-green for a 2/2 elemental. It's an elemental lord, so it gives other elementals +1/+0. So here's another little payoff card to go with that the 3-drop Chandra. So now those are 2/1s. If you have both Chandras, I know we're living in a bit of a dreamland here, but you can have some 4/1 elementals with this and both Chandras. And
Christmas land is the best land.
Of course. But to stay relevant, this guy, for 4 mana, you can activate it to give him +1/+1 until end of turn for each elemental you control. So that's pretty good with the other Chandra. She can pay 2 of the cost for that, right? Like that's, I mean, we're thinking about, the 4 cards that we've seen so far, but I mean, there's already some interaction there. This card's kind of sweet. He can stay relevant by activating himself. It's a sweet little uncommon. We'll have to wait and see if we get more elementals. And if we do, then, this is probably going to be a role player in an elemental tribal deck if such a thing does, come to light.
Yeah, it's got a real good small early game and then a real big end game.
Yeah. All right, so the next card that got spoiled that I wanted to talk about, the Tutor. So it's Scheming Symmetry. So it's black for a sorcery. Choose 2 target players. Each of them searches their library for a card, shuffles their library, and puts that card on top of it. So it's a Vampiric Tutor where you don't lose 2 life, but instead your opponent gets the best card in their deck.
Okay, so
I hate it.
I've said this before.
Yep.
I play a lot of Commander. I like talking about Commander things.
Yep.
This card has me so excited.
I can definitely see that. Pod Commander, this can be a pretty good tool, right? Like, you get the best card you want. You can gift somebody a card of their choice. Seems like a great way to form alliances.
Just
pretty good.
Politics. Yeah, you just pick 2 other people to get cards. One of them gets a card that's going to win them the game, and the other one gets a card that stops the other guy from winning the game.
I mean, you always pick yourself as one of the players, right? Like, I always do that. I'm only going to be so nice.
I might pick someone else.
For there, that's probably what this card is intended for. Are you playing this card in Standard?
I don't think so.
Unless a real crazy combo deck that can win the turn they cast it, right? If you get to draw the card before your opponent, then yeah, I'm in for this, right? This is fantastic. But apart from that, this card is, it can be a Commander card. And look, not every card has to be playable in Standard, so all right.
Actually, come to think of it, with both Teferis in the format, that becomes a lot less appealing. Because now Tiny Tef can tick up and be able to cast this at instant speed, so
That's
you
true.
get the card first.
That's true.
And then Big Tef lets you just cast this at sorcery speed just cause.
Yeah.
And then you tick
Draw it
up
in the
Big
end step.
Tef and you draw it.
That's actually worth keeping in mind, that you can instant speed this off its fairy. That is a real thing you can do.
Yeah. Oh no. What
Maybe you do bring it out of the sideboard. Maybe it helps you find your sideboard cards, that's for sure.
Oh no.
Let's wait and see. It is still pretty... I mean, you're not giving them the card. They are just drawing it. Like, some number of times they are just going to draw that card anyway, right? Like...
I was just getting excited about Commander.
All right, next card. We can only spend so much time on what is probably going to be unplayable. Even though you can do that with it, I don't think it's going to be that good. That's my final stance on this card. Here's a 1-mana black card I can get behind. Disfigure. Black for an instant. Target creature gets -2/-2 until end of turn.
Disfigure.
Everybody was worried. Oh, look.
You had to know I was going to say that.
I'm glad you did, to be honest. Yeah, Disfigure's here. It's back. This card's fantastic. You want cheap interaction. You want to push control decks. I mean, this is exactly what we had for a Moment of Craving, except instead of 2 life, you get it for a mana cheaper. And I think that makes for a pretty good card.
That's mana cheap is very important.
Also, that treatment that they've got, I'm assuming this is the promo pack style, because we're getting new promos now too. We're getting promo packs that have a curated selection of cards.
Yeah, I noticed that.
This is
like
I'll pull them all up, but this is one of them. I think this looks fantastic. It's similar to the ones that we've seen. I really want to look at the Negate, because that looks... So yeah, Negate's getting a reprint. It's in the promo pack. I don't know whether that means it's in the set. It does look like it is. So let's have a look at that. Yeah, it looks like these are also in the set then. Let's pull up Negate. This card looks fantastic.
These are gorgeous. They look like the styles on MTG Arena, and
I'm not
unhappy at all.
They've definitely...
These are beautiful.
Drawn inspiration from that. So we've got 5 of them spoiled at this point. So that's the Negate. It does what it says on the card. Pretty straightforward stuff. We've also got Thrashing Brontodon. So I assume that means Longboy goes to market. It looks like that's what I've nicknamed this card, because it looks like this very Longboy is destroying a market. He's actually stepping on a ship, and those people are running for their lives. But it's more fun my way. So Longboy goes to market. We're gonna stay with that. So Corpse Knight is another one of these. So this is white-black for a 2/2 zombie knight. Whenever another creature enters the battlefield under your control, each opponent loses 1 life.
Reverse Soul Sister.
Yeah, this is new. It's another night card, if that's worth anything.
Isn't it? I was like, I don't recognize this. But it is new, isn't it?
I'm pretty sure. I haven't seen this before. So, but yeah, it's a zombie and it's a knight. That's good. We have lords for both of those things in standard at the moment. So maybe it's enough to push one of those archetypes into standard until Dominaria or whatever rotate out. I like it when they just give you that little bit extra for a deck that's only going to be around for, a month or 2. But yeah, this card's cool. I mean, they've made it a promo, so generally speaking, they don't make too many bad promos, if that makes sense.
No, they don't.
And the other one we've got, which is new, is Flame Sweep. So 2 and a red for an instant. It deals 2 damage to each creature, except for creatures you control with flying. So this is Fiery Cannonade, except better.
Yeah.
Creatures you control with flying is probably a better exclusion, I guess, than pirates, right?
Definitely. You can sweep and protect your Phoenix.
Yeah, right. That's great. I didn't think about that. It keeps your Phoenix alive. I love it. I'm on board with it. This card's great. Yeah, if you played Fiery Cannonade, you're going to want Flame Sweep. That's probably as simple as that gets. We've also got some mythics. So these are all very first looks. I've just looked and there's a whole bunch of new cards, but I figure they're there, so we may as well go over them. There's a mythic here. It's a red mythic, and oh boy, this card looks pretty dope. Cavalier of Flame. So 2 red. So it's 5 mana for a 6/5 elemental knight. It has 1 and a red. Creatures you control get +1/+0 and gain haste until end of turn. You can do that as many times as you like, by the way. When it enters the battlefield, discard any number of cards and draw that many cards. And then when it dies, it deals X damage to each opponent and each planeswalker they control, where X is the number of land cards in your graveyard. This card is pretty full on.
What?
Yeah, it's also an elemental if that's relevant. But wow, there's so much going on this card. Mono red finisher, mid-range beater, like that pump ability. You got this dude, you get this dude out, and you get to untap with him. I mean, even if you don't play a land, you're going to hit him for like 7 or 8, right? You can play whatever you draw, then activate the ability. So now your 3-drop that you play gets haste and +1/+0. And then when it dies, like you probably discarded some number of cards. I mean, I know what I want to discard, and it's lands, right? Draw gas, get rid of lands, and then just swing. This thing dies, and then you just dome everything they've got. This is great. Like, all their creatures probably die. There's a lot of planeswalkers going around. This card seems very, very good. I hope this is a cycle. right? I hope there's a big dumb elemental for each color.
Cavalier of,
right? They're like a Titan type thing. This would be cool.
Give some haste.
Mythics are getting better, right? It's not just me. Mythics are actually getting better, yeah? Like
you just pay 2 and all your boys get 1-0 in haste.
All right, well, you're excited about that, and
he buffs himself.
Onto creatures that also give other creatures +1/+0. We have Rien, Angel of Rebirth. So 2 red, green, white for an legendary angel. It's a 5/4 with flying. Other multicolored creatures you control get +1/+0, and whenever another multicolored creature you control dies, return it to its owner's hand at the beginning of the next end step. There's a lot of words on this card.
There is a whole lot of words on this card.
But is it any good?
We're looking at this after looking at Cavalier of Flame, so I'm like, that's cute.
Yeah, look, it's fine. I'm actually, like, there's a lot of stuff going on. I mean, if you play a bunch of multicolored stuff and then slam this and then turn them sideways, that's probably good. Then what does your opponent do? They need to kill this. If they don't kill this and they have to trade off, then you get your guys back. So I hope their trades are good, because that's probably fine.
I think this thing is best friends with Hydro Crisis.
Oh, that's pretty good. Yeah, it gets bigger, then it dies. I mean, this is close. Now, I'm assuming the reason why we're looking at this and going, oh, this is kind of cool. It does this, it does that. We looked at it after Cavalier of Flame, so obviously it's not as good. This is also the buyer box promo, so this isn't in the set. So the buyer box promos normally suck, apart from Nexus of Fate, and that's by design. Like, they obviously don't need to be the best cards ever. This is pretty. And Flusterstorm. Well, okay, that's a little bit different, but this is fine as a buyer box promo. I really like this. Like, I was, as I saw it, I'm like, well, where do I put it? How am I going to play this card? This has got to be. And then I read buyer box, and I was like, oh, okay, like, wow, okay, I'm actually impressed for what this is. This seems great for, if you want to play a multicolored tribal commander deck. I mean, it's all about. I like this space in the set as a way to give.
This is Naya Angels,
right? Yeah, a way to give casual type decks or commander type decks options and things. I think this is fantastic. They did it with the Fire Song and Sunspeaker, and look, they kind of missed the mark a little bit with that card. Not through any fault of theirs. I just feel that red white is a hard space for them to design in. But yeah, this card seems great for exactly that. Naya Angels. What else do we have?
If we don't talk about Chandra Spitfire, I will riot.
Okay, that's everything for today then. Thanks for watching, guys, and see you next week.
You bad man. No, so Chandra Spitfire had just rotated out of Standard when I started playing Magic, and Chandra was my first Planeswalker. My first Planeswalker card was a Chandra the Firebrand. Not a very good Planeswalker card to start with, but Chandra's always had a special place to me.
Well, here is a creature that is just about as playable as Chandra Firebrand.
Chandra Spitfire.
Yep.
No, mate.
It's a great limited card.
Spitfire. If this lives, if you untap with this, or you play it the turn after, I don't know, Cavalier of Flame because it gives it haste.
Well, you're not casting too many non-combat. Like, you're not creating a lot of non-combat damage if that's what you're doing, right? This card's awful. You can't. I think you're just a little blinded by the Chandras that we've seen. As an elemental.
It's a 3-mana 1/3 with flying. It's an elemental.
When has a 3-mana 1/3 ever been playable?
Well, when it becomes a 7/3.
That's a lot of work, though.
Twice.
That's a lot of work, though, right? Like, you play a Viashino Pyromancer. Now it's a 4/3, right?
Yeah.
And then Fanatical Firebrand and sacrifice itself. Now it's 7.
Well, you're playing this alongside like Runaway Steamkin, right? Because that's an elemental.
Yeah, I guess that's an elemental. This seems like a pretty awful follow-up to a Steamkin.
Here's a counter. Shock. Here's a counter. Other spell. Here's a counter. Remove the counters. Yeah.
I love where you can go with this. This is a great card. I think this will probably be in the new player intro decks.
This set's Risk Factor. I was so behind Risk Factor.
And Risk Factor turned out to be just fine, right?
Okay.
It's just fine. This card is decidedly worse than Risk Factor. It dies to everything in the format. It asks a lot of you to actually become good. If you play this and can't attack them for more than 1, you never win. Yeah, this card sucks. This card will not see any play. I'm sorry. I know you love it. I will give you every...
I'm playing this after Cavalier of Flame, and I will body you in standard testing with this.
I feel like the only time I play this card is after the MCQs when standard doesn't really matter. All right, on to a Chandra's card that I am excited about. There's one more Chandra card. I don't know if it's good, but it certainly is cool. So, I mean, that makes sense following up this card, I guess, because that fits into that category too. Chandra's Regulator is 1 and a red for a legendary artifact. Whenever you activate a loyalty ability of a Chandra Planeswalker, you may pay 1. If you do copy that ability, you may choose new targets for the copy. Cool, that's fine. It also has 1, discard a mountain card or a red card to draw a card. That I like. I like a lot.
That's probably what you're playing it for more than the loyalty.
Oh, 100%. Like, if that comes up, then you're happy, but that second ability is huge.
The obvious thing the obvious loyalty ability to pair Chandra's Regulator with is the emblem.
Oh, that's pretty good, yeah. I was like, red, maybe? Get 4 mana? I like that.
It's 2, then 4, then 6, then 8. You know, you just bang, 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 bang.
But yeah, like, I just like that second ability. I think this is a great sideboard card for mono red decks to help draw them out of things. If you don't, for some reason, want to play Experimental Frenzy, I mean, okay, like, you only get to do this once, but, you know, you put that in your deck alongside the 4-drop Chandra we've already got. I mean, that's fine, right? Like, exile 2 cards off the top of your deck. That's pretty sweet.
Well.
So I think this is a cool little sideboard card for that deck. It also looks super sweet. Legendary artifacts that are colored look really, really good. This is the first time we've seen an artifact that was legendary, which has a color identity. So I also lied. There's one other Chandra's card. It was Chandra's Ember Cat.
Yeah,
but I don't want to talk about that one. So
I might have a new favorite Magic card. Like,
is it Chandra's Spitfire?
No.
Oh, okay, right.
Chandra's Spitfire is a reprint that existed before. I'm just really excited that I can play with it in Standard. You can judge me all you like.
And I will.
But Cavalier of Flame could be my new favorite Magic card. That is a ridiculous card.
It's pretty full on, right? Oh. Well, I mean, speaking of favorite cards, I'm going to talk about my favorite card from this set that has been spoiled so far. I've read through these, and I've already found it. Yarok's Fenlurker is an uncommon, black for a 1/1 creature horror. When it enters the battlefield, each opponent exiles a card from their hand, and you can pay 2 and a black to give it +1/+1 till end of turn. This is one of the coolest, like, shade type effect cards I've ever seen. This card is awesome. This card is absolutely awesome. It comes down, it takes a card, right? You get a card for it. Doesn't exile it until it leaves the battlefield or anything like that. It just exiles a card from their hand, right? And then any other turn you want to use it, you can just pump this thing up and get in for some damage. I think this card's fantastic.
Seriously?
This card's awesome. Look at it. It's so good. Black gets a card out of their hand. It's a 1/1. It can become relevant late game.
I really can't tell whether you're taking the mickey right now.
All right, what I like about this card more than anything else is that its mana cost is black. And every time I see a card printed in a set with a relevant ability, but with a mana cost like that, it always makes me just go, Devotion? Is that a thing? Is that happening? Are we doing that again?
No.
Like when I saw Chain Whirler and that cycle, I got very excited.
No.
Now I'm seeing this guy. I mean, you know, Devotion's probably, what do they say? It's like one of their best rated mechanics ever.
Yeah, I'll give you that. That was a fantastic block. I don't think they're bringing back Devotion.
I mean, where do we go next? Like, you know, the Elspeth storyline is still tied up. We don't know what's happening with that. I mean, we could definitely go back to that plane.
I can't believe you're so excited about this horror.
It's so good!
About Chandra's Spitfire.
Just you wait and see.
These two in a draft, like first pick, I'm picking the Spitfire over the shit.
I'm picking the one that takes a card out of your hand. You're going to look real dumb when you run out of cards. You're probably going to be like, I'm glad he played that so I can discard this terrible Chandra's Spitfire.
We're actually really good friends.
Yeah. Well, I'm putting my money on Yarok's Fenlurker. Please comment below whether you're Team Spitfire or Team Fenlurker. I need to know. Fenlurker's just, look at this guy. All right, well, that's probably it. I'm tired. More spoilers came out than I thought. Let's wrap this thing up. Is there anything else you wanted to talk about, or you're pretty much done here?
I just can't believe you don't like Chandra's Spitfire.
So you're done here. Cool. All right. Well, thank you, everyone. As always, please like, comment, subscribe, all that sort of thing. Please check me out. I'm playing MTGA on Twitch at Deathrite Squid. You can get me at Deathrite Squid on Instagram and Twitter as well. Chaoski, where you at?
I've set up an at Kayosky, KayoskY on Twitter.
I'll make that flash up on the screen as you say it.
I think I'm going to use that as like discussion for the videos that we do.
Yep.
I would love to know how many of you think that Deathrite Squid is wrong on Yarok's Fenlurker. Go Team Spitfire.
Yeah, I mean, yeah, let him know. That's exactly what that's for as well. I assume, like, I'm gonna get more into that stuff as well. I want to make sure I'm posting deck lists and all sorts of things as I'm playing decks on Moto and on MTG Arena. I think you said you're going to be doing the same thing, so yeah, keep an eye out on there. We'll be putting up decks of things we like as well. But yeah, that's gonna do it for today. Catch you guys in the next video.
See you later.